Okay, good day everyone. Hopefully everyone is in the good conditions. Uh, Welcome to AtmosTalk, a series of Road to COP31 2026. The theme for today is Symbiosis Coalition's take on high integrity project. Thank you for all the participants that is joining this event. Hopefully, um, in any kind of the situations, you can learn a lot of things about the buyer's perspective on carbon market. We have a distinguished
You're
speakers
welcome.
here, and of course, very excited to hear from Symbiosis Coalitions what their take on high integrity projects. Uh, our AtmosTalk event itself has been a series since 2 years ago, and for this particular event, we have about more than 80 registration participants and the attendance is vary from Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Mexico, the USA, United Kingdom, Germany, and many more. So hopefully, in every part of the country are you in, you will be joining and focusing and listening and learn something from this event. Next. So before we begin, I would like to share a bit about our series of Atmos Insight. So basically, from all of the learnings that you will get here, we want you to share the key takeaways as well from today's sessions in the LinkedIn post. So all of your network and all of your connections learn together with you. And of course, you can take Fair Atmos in our LinkedIn account and use hashtag Atmos Insight, Atmos Talk, and Atmos Check terms, of course, please follow. Make sure to follow our Fair Atmos LinkedIn account as well, and there will be announcement. The one with most like and reaction will be a winner, and will be contacted within 5 days, and will get a special prize, which is the offset certificate from Fair Atmos as a part of your contributions to offset carbon high quality carbon project as your individual offset. And yeah, I guess the event today, we will have Ratnika from Symbiosis Coalition, which will be introduced later. But before that, I will just want to remind you on one thing. You go to the next slide, please. So don't forget to sign up and register. If you haven't done it, register to our Atmos Check. You can scan the barcode here or open in our website, because at the end of the event we will have a raffle prize announcement. The winner will get a offset certificate from us as well. So don't forget, if you haven't done it, please sign up to our Atmos Check. And so without further ado, to open this amazing session, amazing panel from Ratnika, I will please welcome our moderator, our CEO and co-founder, Natalia Rialuki Marsudi. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Rizky. Welcome, everyone. Have a very good morning. And also welcome to the start of the Ramadan month for those who are celebrating. So it's good to see all of you to be dialing in on this first day of fasting. So hopefully the holy month will be blessings to us all. For those of you who just joined the first time, I would love to introduce a little bit about Atmos. We are the carbon project developer that is focused on building landscape restoration and blue carbon projects across Southeast Asia. In the past 4 years, we have worked with over 800 concession owners. Those are you guys dialing in today, social forestry, private companies, NGOs, friends from governments as well. So thank you. Thank you for your continued support. And we're very excited to play our part in building the ecosystem together with you. So to set the stage and to hopefully can quickly introduce our guest speaker today, today is the year 2026. And the reports has been very optimistic to estimate that the voluntary carbon market will bounce back to be at more than $1 billion US in market this year, and hopefully reaching up to $47 billion US in size by 2035. With forestry will be taking more than 30% of the interest in the carbon markets. As the trend of the market value continues to rise, yet what we're seeing last year, the trend of retirement is declining in 2025. What does it mean, especially for project developers, for anyone who's becoming a stakeholders in this market? It means value quality, and price is driving the market's expectations. It means that buyers, corporate buyers, and investors are becoming increasingly more selective in sourcing projects that meet both environmental integrity as well as commercial viability. And as for this region, also another good news is that Southeast Asia and maybe the broader Asian region, if I may tap to the broader region, we are also seeing first-time buyers from Asia last year, also giving a good indication that the region is up for business, not only for supply, but also for demand. And in this evolving market, understanding buyers' expectations, risk considerations, and the decision-making process is very critical for project developers and ecosystem players. Now, with more projects from Latin America, Africa, and other parts of the world closing buyers' deals, it is time for Southeast Asia with emerging projects to accelerate our understanding about the market's demand. And today, we are very privileged to have our main speaker, Ratnika Prasad. Hi, Ratnika. How are you?
Hey Natalia. Hey everyone. Good morning. Selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi. We're very happy to have you. Before going on to the session, I would love to introduce Ratnika for a bit. Ratnika Prasad is the Strategic Initiatives Lead at the Symbiosis Coalition, a 20 million ton advanced market commitment backed by Google, Meta, Microsoft, Salesforce, and other companies to scale high integrity nature-based carbon removals. Ratnika oversees commercial diligence. So those of you who is really having your best project at the moment, so listen up. She's leading the next Symbiosis RFP for mangrove restoration and other restoration projects. Ratnika has previously spearheaded conservation financing across organizations, great organizations such as the Nature Conservancies, Environmental Defense Funds, World Bank, and Bain and Company. And she also holds MBA and MPA from Harvard University and Bachelor from Cornell University. It is such a privilege for us to have you today, Ratnika. How are you and how is the part of your world today?
We're doing well. Has been an unusual winter here in the United States, including a lot of rain in a part of the country that usually does not get it. So I think it really speaks to the reality of climate change that we see over here and that I know folks in everywhere from Indonesia to other countries in Southeast Asia are seeing. And that is why the mission that Atmos, Symbiosis Coalition, and all of you other participants in the carbon markets are playing is so important, because ultimately we see carbon removals as a very necessary and integral part of how we can advance the management of climate change.
No, that's so great, Ratnika. And I guess we would love to hear more about Symbiosis Coalition. There are almost 50 of us today in the room, and I think most of us also are just the first time also trying to get to understand better about symbiosis. Would you be able to share a little bit about what is symbiosis, what are you trying to accomplish, and what is important to you? I would love to give the floor to you, Ratnika. The floor is yours.
Thank you. If I could just share some slides, I think that would make it easier for me to talk to everybody here. Please let me know once you can see this.
Yeah, we're good.
Super. Well, thanks again, Natalia and Atmos team, for this chance to speak with you all. I'm so excited to be sharing a little bit more about Symbiosis today and helping you understand what we, from our position here as an advanced market commitment, see as necessary and important to continue to advance the high quality market for nature-based removals. So before we jump into that, to answer Natalia's question, let me tell you a little bit about Symbiosis. We are an advanced market commitment, which basically means that our members, whom you see on the screen, have committed to procuring over 20 million tons of carbon credits from nature-based removals. And the idea here is really that by sending the strong demand signal and by engaging in offtakes for nature-based carbon removals, we can continue to grow the supply of high-quality nature projects and advance offtakes that can not just remove carbon from the atmosphere, but also support the people and the planet. And why did we start on this journey? Some of you here might have previously worked in the power sector. Many of you have seen the very impressive growth of the renewable energy sector in Southeast Asia and Asia more broadly. And where we think the nature market is at today is quite similar to where the renewable energy market was a little while ago, when everybody could see the promise, but it was very hard to secure financing because financiers needed some demand certainty, customers needed revenue certainty, and so there was a little bit of a chicken and egg cycle that wasn't being broken. And what PPAs did was provide long-term guaranteed demand that unlocked financing from banks and other investors that led to the rapid scale-up of supply. And similarly, what we are hoping to do through our strong demand signal and through the 10-year offtake contracts that we advance on behalf of our members is to really provide developers the certainty that there is a market for high quality credits with our 10-year offtakes, and to enable them to then secure the financing that they need to build and develop these projects. So really, our mission is not just to secure offtake for our members, but to use that as a way to spark the market as a whole. And why are we trying to do that? As Natalia mentioned, there are some challenges where everyone talks about the promise of the nature-based carbon removal market, but the reality has been that we have seen challenges in actual offtake. And we think there are 4 key things that need to get solved. First of all, one big challenge in the voluntary carbon markets is that there's no universally accepted definition for what is high quality. Really, every buyer ends up having to make their own definition for what is quality. They end up having to, do their own assessments, and that can cause a lot of confusion in the market for what is genuinely a high quality project, what is something pretending to be a high quality project, which makes so many buyers afraid of engaging in offtake. Related to that, we also see a lot of market uncertainty, right? There's been public backlash when you've had a few bad projects. There's been a lot of uncertainty when you're new to the carbon market removal. And we've noticed that that kind of market uncertainty also keeps buyers from acting. Third, just by, putting a reality check, many companies do not have the resources or the capacity to engage in detailed assessment of projects, right? Like if a company's main job is not to be doing this day in and day out, it can be quite challenging for their procurement teams to be able to go find the high quality projects in the large pool of projects that exist today. And then fourth, and this is where we started similar to renewables, is that there's a huge challenge with upfront financing. It's very capital intensive to engage in reforestation, agroforestry, mangrove restoration, etc. And this is where the long-term offtake can hopefully act as a solve to be enable that financing so that good quality projects can be catalyzed. And so we try to do 4 things that can help with these problems. First of all, our members have committed to sign up to over 20 million tons of carbon projects through 2030. And we really hope that that's a very strong and clear signal to the market that the demand is there. Second of all, we have united, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, behind a single vision of quality. We understand the science is evolving. We work a lot with scientists and experts to make sure that that quality bar is as high as it can be. But the hope here is that by building these standards and by publishing them very transparently on our website, and having webinars like these where we can talk through them, that we can help everyone continue to align around the single definition. The third thing is also just a very practical one. We run a joint RFP so that developers don't have to go negotiate with multiple buyers, but instead they can negotiate with us as the single buyer on behalf of all our members. And then lastly, and this is why I'm here today, we're trying to share what we have learned, what we continue to do, so that as we grow our pool of projects, that we can help the market grow along with us. And so we launched quite recently in Q4 of 2024, and we released our first RFP, which was focused on reforestation and agroforestry. We've since announced one project. There are several other projects in the contracting pipeline that we hope to announce soon. Next and most exciting, as Natalia mentioned to you all, we're hoping to launch our next RFP. This will continue to be open for reforestation and agroforestry, and we are quite excited to be opening this for mangroves as well. And then who knows what the future holds? We continue to try to assess where we can find nature-based projects of the highest quality. And so in the future, the hope is we can continue to expand that definition beyond the two ecosystems that you're currently seeing. And so a quick note on our first RFP. We've shared a lot about this on the internet. You can again find some of this on our website. But the main thing to know is that we, at that point, were really trying to set the market and understand what exists in the reforestation and agroforestry space. And so from a stage perspective, it was it was a bit like the story of Goldilocks, where we wanted to engage with projects that were early so that they could be catalytic, but not too early, because at the end of the day, to sign an offtake contract, you need to be able to sign contracts, raise financing, which means that the entity has to be mature. The intervention type, as I mentioned, was reforestation and agroforestry. And then in keeping with our quality bar, the methodologies that we looked at were the ICDCM approved methodologies. We didn't have a strict size, but typically, as you'll continue to see in our publicly announced project pipeline, we tended to prioritize larger projects to get a strong start on that 20 million ton goal that we've set for ourselves. And we would look at the quality of the project, the execution risk, and the commercial proposal, recognizing that there were sometimes trade-offs between these. For more details on this, we did publish an RFP readiness checklist to help our developers understand exactly what was needed in the application process, and an offtake guidance explaining the structure of the offtake agreement. We'll be publishing updated versions of these in preparation for our next RFP as well. And so very quickly, we were blown away, even at this early stage, by the sheer numbers of projects. We got over 200 submissions that, in theory, could have over 2.3 gigatons of carbon removed from the atmosphere. So a really strong start. At the same time, the application spoke to the reality of the market, with over 95% of the projects being pre-issuance. Of course, this was over a year ago. So one of the things that's been fantastic to see in the last year is that projects have matured and evolved so quickly. And we think this speaks to the promise of the advanced market commitment, where if buyers can provide security that there will be demand, then we've really seen project developers rise up to the occasion. And we've seen that all over the world. As you can see from this map, we received projects from almost 50 countries. And the spread of the geographies where we received the most projects was across the globe, across Asia, Africa, South America, North America. And so let me tell you a little bit about our approach to quality, because at the end of the day, I think this is the part that really helps us move with confidence in the market and try to bring buyers and developers along. We have 5 quality criteria that they aren't just a co-benefit, but really the driver of how we assess a project from the moment that someone submits in our RFP through when we recommend proceeding to contracting. First of all, conservative accounting. We tend to go really deep into the carbon model to understand how you have modeled your emissions, what kind of science have you used to define it, making sure that really what you've put together is not just realistic, but very conservative in response to the reality that these projects are changing and often have changing conditions. The second is the durability. We want to make sure that the impact of the project lasts beyond the 10-year offtake. And so understanding the socioeconomic factors around the project to make sure that there's monitoring, accounting, and supporting mechanisms is a key factor for us. Third, and this goes without saying, these are projects that are not just for carbon, they're for nature and they're for people. And so no project can last without engaging local communities fairly, prioritizing local leadership, and having social benefits for the communities around these. Fourth, ecological integrity is big for us. At the end of the day, we don't just look at projects that are maximizing carbon impact. We look to make sure that they are in line with high biodiversity and ecological values for that ecosystem, and that we're not trying to have a trade-off between carbon and nature here, but that the two go hand in hand. And then lastly, and we think that this is the pillar for success for the nature-based market as a whole, ensuring that there's as much transparency as possible, not just in how we evaluate, but also in the results. And a big part of what we're excited about with our mission is, as we have been closing projects, we hope in the coming few months and years to share with you the ongoing progress of these projects so that you can see for yourself how these are moving ahead, how they're performing, and what lessons can be learned that are helpful for the market as a whole. Now, these were not just designed in a vacuum by us sitting and writing out a Google Doc, but really built in with the support of several experts, both internal and external to Symbiosis, and vetted in part by what is now our technical advisory board. We spend a lot of time putting together a board of people from across the world that often agree but often disagree with each other. And the idea here really was to have the most rigorous science and standards possible, supported by these independent advisors, so that when we vet projects, we are adhering to the best standards possible. And with their support, we launched our reforestation and agroforestry quality standards, and will now be launching our mangrove standards as well. A few highlights to note, again, from a quality perspective: they're based on the Abacus label principles. They are focused on being CCB aligned with a preference for native species, and they have very stringent requirements around financial transparency. Again, just noting that, we built these in partnership with as many policy experts, NGO experts, academic experts, and other carbon markets players, so that we could continue to advance our mission of aligning around quality. And we will be launching our mangrove quality criteria soon. So looking forward to your response on that. I think a couple of things before I move ahead, because I know that this is of interest to several of you in the audience. Like, what is it we actually mean when we say offtake ready, right? It can often be a pretty abstract principle. And I'd say for us, there are three pieces to it. So first of all, really making sure that the project is designed with integrity, right? And this shows up in multiple ways. It shows up in the theory of change. It shows up in whether or not your project activities are suitable for the ecosystem and for the context, right? Like, if you have a project where you were planting mangroves in the middle of the desert, that would obviously not be suited for the context or an appropriate project, even if it might sequester some carbon. And in that sense, our scientists really look closely at whether you're doing the appropriate intervention for the appropriate ecosystem. We look at experience, not just of the developer, but of your partners. If you're working with local communities, are you partnering with the people that have been working there for decades? If you have a team, does that team have people who know how to operate in that ecosystem? Becomes very important. And that leads us into the second piece, which is the robust operational planning, right? Despite the tech and despite the science, nature restoration is a very hands-on activity. And so really evaluating the people that can do it to make sure that they have the right team in place, they have the funding to be able to do this, they have the best land pipeline so that they can actually execute on the goal, and that they're well capitalized, recognizing that, offtakes are long-term projects. And then finally, we look at proof of concept. We understand you would not have completed the full project, but do you have a good pilot? And do you have a pipeline so that we know that you can actually deliver on the pilot, beyond the pilot is important. And this goes hand in hand with some of the main lessons that we learned from the first RFP. So I'll go over this in brief and just note that this is also on our website if you're interested in some of these details, and happy to answer any more questions. But first of all, we'd say the biggest challenge that we saw with a lot of projects was the conservative accounting, specifically just, a lack of confidence in the data that was used to do the modeling, the appropriateness of the intervention, additionality, leakage, and your baseline calculations. Sometimes this is an opportunity, right? As we expand projects globally, we understand that, for example, not every species has a species-specific allometric equation, and we understand that, and we see that as an opportunity to advance the science. But on the whole, we need to understand that it's a well-thought-out model with lots and lots of buffers to make sure that even if things go wrong, it can still deliver a good amount of carbon. The second, I'd say, on durability is, and this is really a challenge that high-quality nature projects have to meet. Understanding from the PDD and from the supporting document whether or not a project could last beyond the 10-year offtake was often a big miss for several projects, right? If it's a well-designed activity, then the hope would be that this would last many years beyond the offtake, and that the developer would have the appropriate monitoring and accounting to make sure this happens. Relatedly, a huge challenge often was that the types of contracts that the project had signed with landowners were open-ended. And this is an area where Vera and Gold Standard and several other ICDCM approved standards have issued guidance, and we'd encourage you to take a look at those to make sure that you're designing contracts for land pipeline appropriately. And that matters not just for the durability of the project, but that also matters for your relationship with the local community. And so, the third piece we'd really highlight here is sometimes the project looked great from a carbon perspective, but it wasn't clear that they actually had the buy-in of the community. And that could be buy-in from your local government, that could be buy-in from the communities, that could be buy-in from other key stakeholders. And at the end, these are all very important things to make sure you clear, because at the end of the day, when we sign an offtake, we want it to be with a high quality project that can deliver for a long time. And so I'll stop there on, just to say a little bit about what's next for us. We've announced our first project a couple of months ago, which was very exciting, and we hope to continue announcing several more this year. We'll be releasing the updated quality criteria soon, launching our next RFP in the next couple of months that includes mangroves. We're always adding more members. We just announced 2 new members in November, and we hope to be able to bring in more buyers, including Asian buyers soon. And then finally, we're a nonprofit. Our mission at the end of the day is to grow this market. And so we're always open to collaborations with investors, standard makers, policymakers, etc. And so I have thrown a lot of information at you, but I'm very excited to hear your questions. Thank you again for the opportunity to share about Symbiosis.
Thank you so much, Ratnika. It's been very, very insightful. You have crossed a lot of my questions for the moderated session, actually. So thank you so much for covering. I think a big part that is very useful for also early project developer is really to understand that quality is broken down into different types of pillars, conservative accounting, durability, social impact. So hopefully this could be something that we could take away. So before going on to the question and the chat box, which is very exciting, I have one follow-up questions to you, Ratnika. And please, friends who are on the line, do jot us your questions. Now, I think you raised it part about the data availability according to different regions, right? Like, for example, for Southeast Asia, not only mangroves and reforestation and mineral forests, but also the peat area, right? And sometimes this type of ecosystem is still very limited in terms of the data. As what you also mentioned is when the coalition is adhering to the ICPCM, right? There are still also quite limited methodology that acknowledge such different types of ecosystems, right? So I guess the question is, as well as this, to strive for improving the science itself with data and quality, what do you think project developers together with the coalition could do to also further enrich the understanding, the different landscapes, the different data, because we would love to also showcase how rich the biodiversity is in this region, and would also, develop not only the science, but also to be acknowledged in terms of how this type of ecosystem also can deliver the impact. So what can we do, Ratnika, to further enhance the richness, the data, be it through the RFP or not to the RFP? Is it something that we can do?
This is such a great question, and I really wish my technical team was here because this is something that, we talk about almost every day. I think part of the challenge, but also the opportunity, is that as the voluntary carbon market continues to grow in Southeast Asia, you know, you'll just have a better supply of data that can inform our understanding of quality. And so we see this as both market making activity, but also something that will evolve as the market matures. In our RFP, the way we think about it is, I would say, a couple of very tactical things, right? One is, like, when we think about conservative accounting, the idea is not to be perfect, but it is to understand that you've been very thorough in thinking about it, right? So, for example, if a particular species is unique to a certain ecosystem in Southeast Asia, but maybe doesn't have an allometric equation, have you thought through what are the closest references? Have you done sampling? Can you share that information when you explain to us why you picked the numbers you did in the model? Would be great. And then what we are trying to think about for projects that move ahead is how can we support the establishment of that data for these, right? So thinking through transparent monitoring, reporting, and verification, thinking about sharing the outcomes from this data alongside with the developer, with the market, those are big priorities for us. But as a starting point, I would just want to be very clear that we understand that there are gaps that sometimes a developer can't fill, and we just want to know when those gaps exist, despite you having tried to think through them, right? The second thing that I would really say is the level of detail matters. And when we look at projects, what really stands out to us about the good projects is that they've thought through everything, right? At the end of the day, we are doing the evaluation, but you are the people who are on the ground working with communities, working with the teams, working in the forest or the mangrove ecosystem. And so, like, we really think about this as a learning opportunity for us and a learning opportunity for the buyers we represent. And that is where, part of what the coalition also tries to think about is, okay, where is there room for improvement in our quality criteria? Where is there room for improvement in the standards? And we try to reflect that information back as well.
Thank you, Ratnika. I think this is very helpful. So, guys, robustness, level of data, level of quality is something that we can also help to contribute, grow the market and make it more mature. Because you mentioned about, one thing that stands out about the project is the level of thoroughness. Maybe I would love to pick on the questions from the audience here from Rumi. It's also my question, actually. What stood out from Mombak's application last time around that could be useful for other project developers, especially for the next RFP? Could you share a little bit about the project, Ratnika?
Sure. So what Rumi is referring to is the first project that we've announced, which was called the Mombak project in Brazil. It's a conservation-oriented reforestation project over 20,000 hectares, and it was established on areas that have been degraded in the Brazilian Amazon over several decades, which is, as we all know, one of the world's most important tropical forest landscapes. And so on the whole, the Mombak project was really outstanding in meeting all of the Symbiosis quality criteria and really giving us hopes and conviction that this stands to be a very high quality project. I think there are three things that I would note here that are worth considering, right? So first of all, the ecological integrity of the project was outstanding. Again, this was focused on reforestation, and they used over 80 species, native and not, mostly native, but also some non-native, to do that reforestation. And it was very clear that it was a scientifically based planting design that did sequester carbon, but that was also very designed for the natural landscape. And so it was very suitable for that region. It was mostly native and very rich in biodiversity, which is important for us because we're not trying to establish a monoculture through our carbon projects, right? The second thing I would say is that the durability of this project was outstanding. So in addition to having a very careful design that ensured long-term benefits for the communities, the project had a 100-year durability term through the kind of long-term partnerships that were established through its contracts with the communities around. And I'd say, this really goes back to the fact that one of the things buyers care about is the long-term durability of these projects. And so Mombac's 100-year durability term was a big win in this sense. And then the third piece that I'd note is that scientifically, there were certain gaps, but Monback really, built interesting, innovative ways to fill those gaps. For example, in how it mitigates leakage, how it accounts for leakage in the project, how it accounted for its dynamic baseline, and so on. And so we'd say, again, the idea is never to be perfect, but to make sure, give us a sense that you've been thorough with your carbon accounting and that you thought through interesting and innovative ways to address the gaps that exist.
I think this is very helpful, Ratnika. So it's about the thoroughness. So it's not about the perfect project, but also the thoroughness of your calculation and understanding about. And I like your point about ecological integrity and how you're marrying mostly native and also open for non-native, basically in order to be able to maximize the impact of the restoration activity to sequester. I think that's really, really important. Now, as we wait for more questions, I do have two other questions for you, Ratnika. I think one particular one is talking about experience. Your part about not only quality, but also the operational experience and commercial viability is also very important. What would be your advice to Southeast Asian project developers? Most of us are still very young and basically also still learning and developing our track record in the market as well. Is there any advice that you can share with us in order to showcase the ability, credentials, credibility in order to be able to operationalize and deliver the project that you would love to back?
Yeah. I would say, what's very exciting to me about Southeast Asia is that while the voluntary carbon market and VCM players like Atmos may be young, they bring a lot of innovation that is a good marriage with the decades of protection work and conservation work that have happened, right? Like in Indonesia, for example, with protecting the forest ecosystems, and similarly in Malaysia, in Vietnam with agroforestry, that's not a new concept. And so I think from an experience perspective, we're not expecting some kind of perfect project where a developer built 4 projects and this is their 5th project. We know that that's unrealistic. Rather, when we look at the team, what we want to see is that you have the building blocks to make a good project, right? So you understand finance because these are capital intensive projects. You understand operations, which means that you have people that have experience on the ground with conservation, right? People who've actually spoken to landowners, who have actually know how a nursery works because you'll need seedlings, who understand the realities that sometimes, you can do a planting and 70% of that planting might die, and then you need to think of a backup plan. So that operations part, it becomes really important. And then finally, the commercial part, right? Which is these are contracts at the end of the day. So making sure that it's an entity that has the ability and experience to manage contracts.
Thank you, Ratnika. I think this is very helpful. Now, I have 3 more questions, and I think these should be the questions for the Q&A. One that is maybe talking about the risk that you just mentioned, right? There are a lot of risks, the operational, the offtake, the long term, but Nabila is asking if you have to choose one, which would be the most difficult one to mitigate?
That is a tough one. I think the most,
Yes, go
the
ahead.
most The most difficult one, and this is why I would urge all developers to start with, thinking about this as carefully as possible, is the suitability of what you're trying to do. Like if the intervention you're thinking about, if you start with just carbon, but it's not suitable to that ecosystem, it's not suitable to the landowning type, right? Like maybe your intervention would work well with a few big concessions, but you're in an area with many small landowners, or maybe your intervention requires contracts that are 50 years, but in that area it's very hard to do that. I'd say that suitability is such a foundational factor that if you don't pick the suitable design for where you're working, then it's very hard to change that or mitigate that down the road.
That's very helpful. Suitability also means understanding really what the environment, what the community needs. I guess that's also very important, Ratnika. And I guess a good follow-up questions from Shakura is that because exactly what you mentioned, right? How do we design something that is suitable, especially in Southeast Asia, where projects may be small and fragmented? How would you think that both as a coalition, as a buyer, when thinking about a project, how could we balance between the need for minimum scale, which is around 500 tons over 10 years, right? And the inclusive or sustained engagement with local communities? Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, Shagura, one thing I would want to clarify is that we don't have a minimum scale as we look ahead. We will prioritize bigger projects just because, these are a huge commitment and there are a lot of our time and the developer's time. But by no, we'll be looking at many projects that aren't 500,000 tons. The other piece of this, I'd say, is that fragmented does not necessarily mean that it can't be a big project, right? Like we are not trying to look for continuous area projects. We understand that that's not the reality of not just Southeast Asia, but many landscapes in the world. And so several projects that have come through our pipeline and that continue through our pipeline, including Mombat, I would say is a good example, are often group projects, right? Where you stitch together over a landscape, multiple areas. And if anything, I would say that's a strength of a project, particularly in a place like Southeast Asia, because if you're working with many stakeholders, you lower the risk of the total project failing if a few stakeholders come out, right? So that's one of the balances we think about.
Thanks, Ratnika. So it is about a group project. How do we stitch it together? It's also one of and it's not, I think what I'm hearing from you, it's also not only unique to Southeast Asia. So there are, maybe we could think about like a working case studies out there that probably we could also look and try to adopt it in this region as well. So I guess,
and I would say Mombat is one example of such a project where it is it's a landscape level project with many partners.
That's great. That's great. I think we would need to have a special session on Mombak, I believe. But I guess I want to just close this Q&A session. I'm gonna merge two questions to become one, Ratnika, because so then everybody can get the questions answered. Maybe from Julia is asking, how important is it for a project developer to have other non-carbon revenue stream? I think that's a quick one. And last but not least, do you know if there's any other programs or schemes that is available for project developers to build capacity to design such quality project? It could be from your end, coalition end, or anything that we could also tap into. Go ahead, Ratnika.
Sure. I'll be very quick. So, Julia, to your question, we think it's quite important from a durability perspective. Our offtake contracts are 10-year contracts, they're pay on delivery. And so, it is a meaningful amount of revenue, but it's not going to last forever. And that is when additional revenue streams become important. And then in terms of resources, we have two databases on our website that anyone can access. One is called an investor resource database, one is called an early stage resources database. And what we've done there is collect information from all of the investors who are interested in being contacted and all of the early stage accelerators, supporters, and other types of entities that are willing to work with early stage projects. So I would encourage all of you to look at the website and make use of those resources.
Thank you so much, Ratnika. It is a great 50 minutes spent together with you. It was very insightful. If I could quickly wrap up what, a lot of learnings today is like sometimes applying to the RFP can be very daunting, but it's not about the perfect project. It's about the thorough notes, the amount of data and conviction and suitability that we've thought through for the projects. I think that is one key takeaway. So hopefully we could help you not only obtain 200 RFPs but more this year, Ratnika. And we would love to also have you in the region anytime you're here. I think you have friends now from everyone's dialing in from Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, who would be happy to show you around in case you want to come and visit sometimes. Thank you so much, Ratnika, for your time.
Thank you. And we look forward to many, many more applications and many, many more projects from everyone on the call. So appreciate you making the time.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Ratnika. Take care in the US and hope to see you soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And that's the end of the session, ladies and gentlemen. So I would love to pass the floor to Aruna. Thank you all.
Thanks, Ria. Good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi semua. To cater to quite a diverse audience that we have here, I think I'm going to switch language to bahasa just to make sure most of the audience in the room can have a very comprehensive understanding. Jadi kalau tadi kita sudah dengar dari Ria dan Ratnika terkait sebenarnya dari buyer itu apa sih yang dicari dari sebuah carbon project dan sebenarnya apa sih yang menjadi kriteria penting. Nah, dari situ sebenarnya di Atmos sendiri kami mengembangkan berbagai produk dan services yang memang didesain dengan the market demand in mind gitu. Dan apa yang buyer butuhkan kami translate menjadi sebuah tool yang dapat membantu para asset owner, para project developer untuk bisa mempersiapkan projectnya dengan lebih baik. Nah, mungkin tanpa saya bertele-tele panjang, di sini kami ingin mendemonstrasikan salah satu produk flagship kami yang bernama AtmosTalk, yang seperti tadi saya mention di awal bahwa ini adalah tools utama yang membantu teman-teman dari asset owner ataupun project developer untuk melakukan eligibility check di awal project cycle project gitu untuk bisa tahu. Nah, mungkin kita pause dulu di sini. Jadi dapat dilihat di layar di sini bahwa AtmosTalk ini pada awalnya dikembangkan untuk bisa mengcater berbagai macam bentuk activity project carbon, mulai dari dari agriculture, forestry, water dan renewable energy. Dalam konteks hari ini yang sudah paling matang itu ada di forestry. Iya. Oke. Nah, jadi kalau dilihat di sini, mungkin di pause dulu. Jadi sebenarnya AtmosTalk ini kami coba desain sesimpel mungkin dengan tujuan untuk memastikan seluruh asset owner ataupun pemilik lahan bisa berpartisipasi, di mana the bare minimum data yang sebenarnya dibutuhkan untuk bisa melakukan analisis kelayakan karbon ini adalah dengan mengupload peta digital atau shapefile yang sudah diperlihatkan di screen ini. Ataupun jika tidak ada shapefile, sebenarnya di platform kami pun it allows untuk teman-teman pemilik lahan bisa menggambar langsung area lahan di peta yang ada di platform Atmos. Mungkin kalau bisa kita lanjutkan. Nah, jadi sebenarnya dengan mengupload shapefile tadi yang dilakukan oleh AtmosTalk ini di balik layar itu apa sih gitu. Nah, mungkin di pause dulu. Jadi yang terjadi tadi di belakang layar adalah sebenarnya untuk setiap area yang tadi di-upload, Atmos sudah melakukan pemetaan tutupan lahan untuk satu Asia Tenggara. Sebenarnya di setiap area yang di-upload itu hutannya komposisinya seperti apa, apakah ada area hutan, ada area non-hutan. Area non-hutannya sendiri berbentuk apa? Apakah itu sawit atau itu semak belukar, lahan terbuka, dan lain-lain. Yang mana setiap jenis tutupan lahan yang berbeda itu juga sudah diestimasikan sebenarnya stok karbon dan potensi emisi dari area tersebut. Jadi dari situ sebenarnya teman-teman sudah tidak perlu pusing untuk melakukan perhitungan secara manual atau independen untuk melihat sebenarnya tutupan lahan area project kalian seperti apa, nilai karbonnya berapa, itu semua sudah diotomasi di platform AtmosTalk. Nah, mungkin di luar itu juga yang membuat AtmosTalk ini menjadi unik dibandingkan dengan platform lain yang sudah ada adalah di luar tutupan lahan sendiri, Veratmos juga memiliki peta-peta land use atau fungsi lahan. Jadi kalau tadi seperti dimention oleh Ratnika, salah satu faktor yang paling penting untuk sebuah project itu adalah memastikan ada social and community benefit, ecological integrity, dan transparency. Di sini kami juga sudah meng-embed sebenarnya data-data desa, data-data indikasi biodiversitas atau keanekaragaman hayati di sebuah proyek, dan juga data-data status kawasan, baik itu hutan lindung ataupun area PIB untuk memastikan proyek itu ketika melakukan perhitungan karbon bersifat konservatif dan bersifat transparan untuk memastikan memang aktivitas yang nanti akan kita klaim sebagai proyek karbon itu bersifat additional. Mungkin bisa dilanjut. Iya, nah kalau kita pause di sini, boleh naik sedikit. Ya, jadi setelah tadi teman-teman mengupload peta digitalnya dan diproses oleh Veratmos dalam hitungan detik sampai menit, itu teman-teman sudah bisa langsung melihat output analisis yang dilakukan oleh Veratmos gitu. Jadi di sini dapat dilihat bahwa dari executive summary-nya gitu sudah langsung terlihat sebenarnya total area yang diupload itu seberapa luas dengan area project yang memang quote unquote produktif secara karbon itu seberapa banyak, metodologi atau aktivitas yang bisa kita lakukan yang dapat diklaim sebagai project karbon itu apa saja, dengan produksi karbon kreditnya itu range-nya seperti apa, dan juga estimated revenue-nya itu seperti apa. Jadi uh, AtmosTalk ini merupakan preliminary tool yang membantu teman-teman untuk ibaratnya sebelum kita harus investasi banyak sumber daya gitu untuk memahami apakah sebuah proyek karbon itu visible atau tidak. Tools ini didesain untuk membantu teman-teman with a very minimum commitment dengan data yang sangat terbatas, sebenarnya sudah bisa mengetahui nih secara preliminary apakah proyek area saya itu layak atau tidak, dan sebenarnya estimasi pendapatannya itu kurang lebih bisa seperti apa gitu. Nah, boleh di next. Nah, mungkin di pause lagi di sini. Sorry. Jadi tadi kalau misalnya dilihat, oke, mundur sedikit. Ya, oke, nggak apa-apa di sini aja. Bahwa selain angka-angka tadi yang sudah diperlihatkan, sebenarnya kami juga memperlihatkan petanya gitu. Jadi dari peta kelayakan ini menunjukkan sebenarnya dari sebuah area project bagian-bagian mana sih yang memang produktif untuk menjadi karbon, dan bagian mana yang mungkin tidak layak atau tidak eligible sebagai proyek karbon. Nah, secara metodologi sendiri sebenarnya di sini kami mencoba untuk memasukkan seluruh metodologi yang relevan dalam konteks kehutanan di Indonesia, dan juga yang dapat uh, mensatisfy kebutuhan buyer, terutama secara high quality dan high integrity. Jadi secara umum kalau dilihat di map legend explanation ini, dari pertama kita ada RWE sebutannya, atau Restoration of Wetland Ecosystem. Ini merupakan metode untuk restorasi mangrove, seperti yang tadi disebut oleh Ratnika, yang akan menjadi salah satu fokus dari Symbiosis juga. Untuk REDD itu sekarang kita ada APD dan AUDD, yaitu Avoided Plant Deforestation dan Avoided Unplanned Deforestation. Terutama untuk Avoided Unplanned Deforestation ini merupakan salah satu metode REDD yang direncanakan akan masuk ke Core Carbon Principle atau High Quality Criteria of Carbon Credit yang akan memiliki premium buyer. Di sini Veratmos sudah mengembangkan engine di AtmosTalk ini untuk dapat menganalisis kebutuhan atau desain project REDD yang sesuai dengan high quality criteria dari premium buyer. Lalu ada juga ARR, jadi ini mungkin tadi utamanya yang di-share oleh Ratnika dari Symbiosis Coalition terkait proyek-proyek reforestasi. Di sini perhitungan ARR kami tidak hanya menghitung sesimpel hutan kalau tadi gundul ditanam jadi berapa karbon stoknya, tapi kami juga memperhitungkan sebenarnya komposisi spesies yang dapat dikembangkan dari setiap provinsi atau setiap wilayah itu seperti apa, komposisi yang native seperti apa, yang non-native seperti apa, karena ini semua seperti tadi dimention dari Symbiosis Coalition merupakan indikator penting untuk menentukan sebuah project itu high quality atau tidak. Selanjutnya ada juga metode IFM, LTPF, atau ini metode proteksi untuk hutan-hutan alam atau HPH, dan terakhir ada REDD WRC, yaitu metode konservasi dan proteksi gambut yang sangat relevan untuk konteks ekosistem di Indonesia. Mungkin bisa di next. Iya, boleh kita pause di sini. Jadi mungkin terakhir ini kalau tadi sudah lihat angkanya, sudah lihat petanya, terakhir juga kami mencoba menyajikan visualisasi dari data nilai produksi kredit karbon dan juga nilai pendapatan, potensi pendapatan dari sebuah project. Jadi teman-teman bisa melihat sebenarnya dari sebuah project itu komposisi kontribusi kreditnya ataupun komposisi pendapatannya itu sebenarnya paling besar itu dari kegiatan apa? Apakah itu dari kegiatan proteksinya, atau itu kegiatan dari perlindungan gambutnya, ataupun dari penanaman. Jadi ini supaya lebih sifatnya visualisasi, tapi teman-teman bisa punya bayangan sebenarnya aktivitas apa yang dampaknya paling tinggi di area potensi project teman-teman. Oke, bisa lanjut. Oke, jadi terakhir, nah ini oke, saya akan di pause. Jadi semua ini bisa dilakukan secara for free di platform AtmosTalk yang langsung dapat diakses di website Veratmos, dan semuanya bisa di download juga dalam bentuk PDF. Jadi akan sangat memudahkan untuk sebagai bahan diskusi dan lain-lain. Dan juga tentunya yang ingin saya tekankan juga bahwa pre-FS ini, AtmosTalk ini merupakan tahap pertama dari tahapan pengembangan proyek karbon yang cukup panjang gitu untuk bisa sampai ke credit issuance. Fungsi utamanya adalah tadi untuk mendapatkan preliminary result dari sebuah area project, apakah areanya layak atau tidak. Namun Veratmos sendiri dalam langkah-langkah selanjutnya dalam pengembangan proyek karbon, baik itu feasibility study, PE development, dan financing, itu adalah sesuatu yang kami juga cater sebagai mitra dalam pengembangan project. Jadi tentunya jangan bingung gitu setelah pre-FS basic ini tahapannya selesai, teman-teman bisa langsung kontak dengan tim Veratmos untuk dapat dibantu. Sebenarnya langkah selanjutnya apa sih untuk kita bisa memastikan dari analisis yang ibaratnya bersifat data sekunder dan semuanya masih di study ini bisa dikembangkan menjadi pada akhirnya ya desain project yang dapat diimplementasikan dan memang berdampak untuk climate dan untuk penyerapan dan mitigasi karbon. Mungkin itu yang dapat saya sampaikan untuk sesi kali ini terkait deep dive dari platform AtmosTalk ini. Untuk selanjutnya saya kembalikan ke MC. Terima kasih.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Aruna. Thank you, Natalia, and also thank you, Ratika, for insightful discussions. Of course, we are nearing the end of our sessions. I think before we close, don't forget hashtag Atmos Insight. Share your key takeaways from today's sessions in LinkedIn post. Tag Fair Atmos LinkedIn account and use the hashtag Atmos Insight, AtmosTalk, and Atmos Check. Don't worry if you are joining late. We will upload this recording in our YouTube, and we will share to your email later on, because we have all the email the recap of today's event also, so you don't miss out even if you join a bit late to this event. So next, I think right now we will do the raffle prize. And can Filza help share screen? The wheel.
Can you see my screen?
All right. I think let's see. This is all of the names that should be here during this event. So, all right. Let's spin on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, who will be the lucky winner for this event? Okay, we have a winner. Congratulations, Noval Fauzan Raihansyah. For the winner, after this, yes, you're still here. Congrats, Noval. After this, we will send you to the email. We will buy you an offset certificate, so you can be proud of yourself as a part of joining this event. You are offsetting high quality carbon project in one of the registry that we have. So yeah, we will send the offset certificate to your email later on. And again, congratulations. Okay. Lastly, just kind of reminder to everyone. So what Aruna shared before about our Atmos check, if you have registered, if you haven't tried it, you can try it, especially if you have a land. As long as it's in Southeast Asia, we were quite confident with the accuracy. Of course, the objective of this is not yet to get the exact numbers of carbon credit productions, but to understand the initial phase whether your area is eligible for carbon project or not. Because we know and understand that Symbiosis Coalitions as the buyers, they have a willingness to buy for carbon credit up to 20 million tons of credits by 2030. Now it's just our job and our role how to push the supply to be able to meet that buyer's demand. So I guess last time before we close the event, let's do a quick virtual photo sessions. So if everybody can kindly open the mic, open the videos. Yeah, Kartika, Bu Edrida, sorry there. Thank you. So yeah, I think we can. How many screen that we will have here? One, only one screen. Okay, great. So on my count, two screens. So we will have to. There's still 50 participants here. We will have to screenshot. So on my count of 3, let's do cheese. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Say cheese, everybody. Okay, one more time, yeah. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Say cheese, everyone. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in this event. Hopefully, you have insightful sessions, and don't forget to share your learnings after this as well. And of course, we will have more of AtmosTalk, whether it's online or offline. We will invite you and part of the ecosystem with Fair Atmos. Thank you so much, everyone. Hopefully, you have a nice day and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.